We're good. We're ready to go, and it's only 6:08. This is tremendous. Wow. Well, thanks again for the opportunity to be here. My name's Len Toenjes, and I am the president of AGC of Missouri. AGC of Missouri represents about 525 commercial, utility, and transportation contractors across the state of Missouri. We are one of 90 chapters of AGC of America. So we have nationwide over 30,000 firms who belong to AGC of America. So with that, the sort of the big picture of the presentation is kind of to know where we're going, maybe take a look at where we've been in the last 12 months. So start with a look at what the facts are for 2021. We all are probably like a lot of the blind men describing the elephant, that we all saw this from our own perspective. But I spent some time to try to look at the big picture here of what went on nationwide, and then we can look at 2022. So sort of in three segments, looking back, look at what happened in the projects and market segments part of the world, what happened with materials, and what happened with people and the workforce. A lot of this is from a survey that AGC of America and Sage Contracting did over the last couple months. So I guess probably a good place to start is the pandemic. What happened to projects looking back at 2021? This is nationwide data, okay? What impact has the pandemic had on your projects? 84%, costs higher. Big surprise? No surprise. Projects took longer, had to put higher prices into contracts, longer completion times. And 3% said there was no impact. Now, who are those 3%? I'd love to know. I don't know what line of work they're in, but I think this is pretty true that everybody saw, and we'll see in the data verifying a lot of these impressions that people had about 2021. Read it and weep. That's what happened to material prices during calendar year 2021. Steel, 128% in 1 year, in one 12-month period. Diesel, 55%, aluminum, 30%, copper and brass, 23%. Interestingly enough, I mean, early in the year, it was lumber and plywood, and that kind of came back down a little bit, but look at those increases in the different types of materials. That is just the producer price index, year-over-year PPI, producer price index. The bottom line kind of tells a different story. While material prices went up over almost 20%, the cost to the buyers of construction only went up 13%. So the market ate 7%. Design firms, the contractors, the suppliers, either through better productivity or changes in operations or whatever, somehow the owners didn't pay 20% more. The price of projects went up 12.5% in 2021. Structural steel. Look at the history there going back to, it starts in 1985 on the left, 1984. You are at historic highs in structural steel prices. And why? Everybody's like, why is steel going up so fast? China's reduction of smelter capacity down 30%. U.S. steel makers are asked to fill more global demand. So China gives, China takes away. So you're looking at this crazy uptick in steel, and it really has to do with imports and what's going on there. Second highest price in history. And I don't know when it was higher. It must have been back in the 1800s, because I sure don't see it on this chart. But look at the sort of stuff you're seeing in steel. And I talk anecdotally, I mean, talking with our members who are steel suppliers, they were sending us, and maybe some of you got this too, you're getting a letter a week almost from the manufacturers saying, here's another 8% this week, here's another 10% this week, here's another whatever percent the next week. So you're seeing that week after week after year, but look where it came up cumulatively. Here's aluminum. Here's a look at what's going on with aluminum. You can see on the left-hand side, warehouse stock levels, what's in the warehouse has gone through the floor. The amount of aluminum that's available in tons came from 23 million down to less than 9 million. And the prices, needless to say, this is a classic supply and demand. Look what happened to aluminum prices. So supply's down, prices up. Diesel, fuel, gasoline, run the machinery, run the equipment. Same story. You saw the numbers there. But again, you're looking at historic highs going back to a 10-year span from 2017 till now. You're at historic highs. So this is not like something that's just something that happens every day. Big surprise in the survey. What was the major reason that projects were delayed? 48% costs, 16% reduced funding available, 16% don't know. Similarly, you got this delay in the completion date because you can't get the stuff. If you were reliant on aluminum there, based on that last chart, you can see that things were not available. What did you do? 10% of people said they didn't have a problem. So that means 90% of the people did. I was talking to a GC today. He said, whenever somebody comes into me and says, oh, I can't get so-and-so, he just says, get an alternate, get an alternate, get an alternate. It's like that's like his primary thing, like get an alternate, get an alternate. Well, you have to go to alternate suppliers, alternate products. I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, it really is to look at these alternate products and alternate designs and have to go back. I talked to a garage door supplier. Guys, people were crying for get their garage doors in. He said, well, I can come and put your garage doors in tomorrow, but you won't be able to use them because I got 6 months before the springs get here. I think it's really requiring a tremendous amount of communication and flexibility and uncertainty. Dealing with people you trust has probably never been more important than it is right now. These last two items are something I heard an economist talk about just today, that when we get further down the road and we start talking about inflation, what happens? Inflation is when too much money is caused chasing too few goods. So if I can't, my wife is the world's worst at this. She has what she calls her pandemic pantry. She goes to the store, she sees the cereal she likes that she wasn't able to get 3 weeks ago, so what does she do? She buys 6 boxes of it. Contractor's trying to do a project and he can't get the insulation, but he sees that he can get it, so he buys enough insulation for the next 2 years. So this stockpiling of materials is people are stockpiling or they're buying stuff early. Guess what? That leads to more dollars chasing fewer goods, because when they do get it in stock, contractors are stockpiling it. Owners are stockpiling it. So it's sort of a self feeding inflation that's going on. What happened in the market between 2020 and 21? We move away from products, move to projects here. Look at what happened in manufacturing and warehousing. I heard today that 1/3 of all the new warehouses being built in the United States this year are being built by Amazon. 1/3. Other non-residential building, education down, big surprise, office down. But this is the billions. Non-residential starts for 2021. Again, looking back at what we saw, these are the starts. Because of people doing the stockpiling, because of onshoring things again, manufacturing up, and you're looking at warehouse. I think probably this other non-residential building. See healthcare up slightly, kind of surprising for last year. So that's the projects. Now the people. Unemployment rate went down, but look at what you've got. Adult men and women are both 3.6%. Look at the difference. Look at the disparity between the racial composition of the workforce. The labor force participation rate, you've got, 38% of the people who are not looking for work, who are out of the workforce. So the labor participation rate is lower, but construction jobs were up in December. So construction is seeing a rebound there, but it's still, if you look at the very bottom, it's still 88,000 less than February of 2020. This is what we saw in St. Louis. This is the amount of craft hours worked by the basic trades. You can see where we were in 2001. You can see where we were in 2008. We all lived through 2008 when this happened. And we've been slowly climbing back out of it ever since in this little sawtooth design. But basically, you see somewhat flat here. This was that pandemic dip and then back up again. Why is the unemployment like it is? Needless to say, people are having a hard time. They have 17% don't care because they either don't have any openings or not having problems. Why is the employment down by 88,000? How many craft workers do you think are vaccinated or not vaccinated? How many people are having to take care of their kids because the schools are closed? How many people are getting extended child tax credits that were accelerated into 2021 that they won't really realize until April of 2022? I heard a statistic today that the day, Chicago closed the schools again because of the teachers went out, 1 million women quit work in Chicago that day because daycare, they don't want to get vaccinated, they've got enough money at home. So I think that is really the issue. It's a combination of issues of why it's down 88,000 people nationwide. Finding people is tough, and there's also wage competition. And I'm jumping way ahead of myself here, but if you can drive by Wendy's and have a $500 signing bonus and start at $15 an hour, am I going to sign up for the apprentice program where I'm making $13 an hour and I got to go hang my ass off a scaffold? Probably not. Probably not. So there's, as the service industry has started hurting for people, that changes the competition in the marketplace for the people who do want to get out and work. So what happened? How did we attract people? Yeah, guess what? We had to increase the base rate. We had to provide incentives or bonuses. We had to increase our benefit contributions. 12% didn't change anything about their pay structure. How many people tried? When's the last time you had room service in a hotel? You know, when's the last time you had, you check in, how many nights are you staying? Staying 3 nights, here's your 3 towels. So it's and we're competing for those people. We're competing for those same people, whether it's trucking, whether it's healthcare, the vaccination requirements. I think that's why, quite frankly, the Supreme Court ruling was so important. I mean, AGC and a few other trade organizations pleaded the case in front of the Supreme Court. Like, hey, if you're going to have all these people get vaccinated, and I will tell you that even some of the owners, we've had meetings of our contractors with the owners. Some of the healthcare owners are like, we don't know if we really want to impose that mandate or not, because we've got to get work done. And we're not going to get work done if half the people walk off the job. And that's a reality. I mean, people are not, for whatever their reasons are, it's just not happening. So you got the wage competition. You got, I'm the chair. Another hat that I wear is I'm currently the chair of the State Workforce Board. The State Workforce Board oversees all the job centers in the state of Missouri. And lady from Nucor was at the thing, and we were talking about being able to find people. She had a lady working there that quit and said, well, why did you quit? Well, my husband got whatever his career was, he could work from home. So he could work from home, never had to go back in the office. They moved to Mexico. She didn't have to go back to work. They can live off of one salary. People are doing the math. Like, well, why do I need to work? I can take my computer and get set up, and I can move to Mexico. Not exactly. Not exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or people are doing the math that after you do the math of dropping the kids off at school and hiring a nanny and doing the health care and all the other sort of stuff, and people are figuring out, well, maybe I don't need to go back to work. So actually, the size of the workforce is shrinking overall. So that's 2021. The beautiful picture of 2021 that we all survived. We all made it. We all made it to 2022. So where are we now? This is my coverall right now. The Wall Street Journal says, forget about trying to forecast 2022. The highest authority available, the Wall Street Journal. So this is my coverall right now. Forget about it. See this little chart right here? That little chart is what the Federal Reserve policymakers' uncertainty, all-time high. The Fed's at an all-time high. More Fed policymakers are uncertain about their forecasts than usual. So now I have plausible deniability that if you have me back here next year, I have verified that I am not alone. Okay. Um, National Association of Business Economists. So this is a national. These are all the economists that all the different trade associations, our governmental people hire. National Association of Business Economists. When do you expect the real GDP to regain 2019? Second quarter or later? And I think that's kind of a wiggle room there of later. But you're looking at first quarter, pretty static. This was 235 members, and this was done in August, you can see. So this has been a little while ago, but there's confidence there that things are coming back in 2022. PNC Bank's economists, we're looking at either 3 or 4 increases in the interest rate this year. Either 3 or 4 increases. PNC saying 3. I heard a guy today from some other outfit that was saying 4. Federal Reserve Chairman, if we have to raise interest rates more over time, we will. 7% inflation rate for 2022 ahead of us. You saw what we just saw last year, what happened with materials and what happened with wages. Consensus estimate of 7% inflation. High inflation is a severe threat to the achievement of maximum employment. So you got more dollars chasing fewer people. Good news, manufacturing purchasing managers index. Now these are guys that are just, they say, go buy cans, go buy chairs, go buy tables. This is what I need. Go buy picture frames. These people don't have anything, but they just take orders. These are people that are in the process, the business of procurement. So the C-suite says, I need 50 tables. They have to find the best price on 50 tables. You can see that this is similar to the Architectural Billing Index, that anything above 50 is good, anything below 50 is bad. You can see what happened here at the end of 2020, but look how it bounced back up. So purchasing, strong, what they're seeing for the market going forward. So you're looking at GDP growth somewhere 5%, but again, that slow start, first quarter, kind of slow. Inflation, this says 3%, but closer to 5. PNC is saying 7. Suffice to say, it's going to be probably when we get to this point where we're looking at the Social Security cost of living index next year. You had 5.9% this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not too far off of that next year where they're headed. Interest rates coming up somewhere between 3/4 of a point or 1.5 points, depending on if they do 3 or 4 rates. Mortgage rates going up, obviously, if the interest rates are going up. Unemployment at that 3.8, 3.9%. This quit rate, this whole concept of this great resignation of people looking for better jobs is real. You've got this churn. Trade deficit, you got people buying stuff. I guess if you don't want to buy stuff, you just go out to LA and grab it off the train. I think that's how that works right now. If you can't find your stuff, just go out there, pick it up there. But I think the last thing is kind of something we were talking about earlier, that sort of getting this flu fatigue or pandemic fatigue. That we've had the lockdown, and we've had something a little less, and something a little less, and so you're looking at at a sort of a softening of that, but it's going to take time. You talk about people not going to work. I sort of use the analogy of the health club. Um, it's great when you're going 2 or 3 days a week and you get in a habit of going every week. And then you go on vacation or something happens and you take a week off and you're like, oh, I got to get caught up on other stuff. And then I take another week off. And then you get out of the habit of going to the club. And the first thing you know, you haven't worked out for 6 or 8 weeks because you fell off the wagon. And I think the same thing happened with people going to work. It's a habit. It's a psychological thing that you get used to not going to work. You get used to being paid for staying home. You get used to a lifestyle. And it's hard to get back into the habit of setting the alarm clock and getting up every day and getting out when it's 8 degrees in the morning and doing what you need to do. It's not it's not real nice. So I get out of the habit, and I think that takes time. That's just a psychological time factor. So what do some other economists have to say? Ken Simonson, who is AGC of America's chief economist, nervously optimistic. Some areas hurting, other areas strong. Factory output coming back, as you saw from those purchasing managers. And then you still have this shipping shortage and the stockpiling. The stockpiling adding to shortages is a real issue. That people are squirreling stuff away when they can find it. And that is just leading to more shortages, basically. No surprise here, looking ahead. This is part of that national survey again. Looking ahead, it's still going to be hard to hire, or it's going to get harder to hire. That's 3/4 of the people that say it's going to either stay the same or get worse next year. I don't know who this 1% is. I think they must have had it upside down, and it will continue to be easier to hire. Again, what do you expect to see your head count? Everybody needs more people. Nobody is looking at a decrease of 25%. That's real top weighted, that everybody is going to be needing more people. This is 1,000 people nationwide. What do you see in terms of the people you need? Big uptick. We're competing with a lot of other industries. These are the job, and it might be a little hard to see. I don't know if you can see this or not. Total non-farm employment, I think you're at a year-to-year percentage change of 56%. Construction, year-to-year change of 58%. I'm sorry, construction 32%, manufacturing 67%. 67% increase in manufacturing employment, 108% increase in employment in durable goods, 62% increase in trade, transportation, utilities, education and health services, 48%, leisure and hospitality, 73%, food service, 75%. So the 32% in construction sounds like a lot, but look at the ranking there, and that's actually the lowest, other than non-durable goods. Construction is the lowest increase in employment of any of those segments. Of course, government went up by 40%. So a lot of competition from a lot of other industries, and we're still lagging behind there with that 32% year-to-year change. as opposed to a lot of these other things that really are taking off. Why aren't people coming back? You got those low-wage jobs. I talked about all those warehouses. You know, people talk about you know, people working from home, but all this shopping from home and all this delivery stuff, all the warehousing and the transportation and all that, those are attractive jobs. You know, the difference between a construction job and a service job was 23%. Now that's shrunk by 5%. So that delta between what we were paying people to get out in the cold and the heat versus another type of career has shrunk. All the spending for the infrastructure, you know, you're talking literally billions. You know, you hear the announcement, $1 billion for bridges, billions of dollars for broadband, billions of dollars for environment. You know, Corps of Engineers. We're having a conference with the Corps of Engineers. We got a conference call with them Friday, but they're looking at a boatload of money for environmental work that the Corps of Engineers has to do as part of this IIJA. So again, the private building side is going to be that much more in competition with all these public dollars that are going to be flowing out there, all the prevailing wage work, all those sort of things that's going to be flowing and drawing people into those markets. And the vaccination rate. The general population has an 81% vaccination rate. Construction rate is 53% nationwide. You get into a, again, if I require it, not everybody requires it. It's political suicide for a union leader to say, okay, you knuckleheads, everybody go get vaccinated. They'll be voted out of office the next day. If a contractor mandates it, everybody's going to either go to work for contractor X or take their tools down to Lake of the Ozarks and remodel houses, build decks for cash. They don't have to worry about vaccination or anything else. Look at that construction resistance rate. You know, when you ask people, will you get vaccinated? 43% of construction guys say, hell no, I won't get vaccinated, for whatever their reasons are. I mean, it's an individual choice. I don't spend, I will admit, I don't spend any time in the job site trailers. I don't spend any time on the job sites. I would be the last one to speak for what the mentality is at work here. That's right. You know, I don't think, again, in this marketplace, in the St. Louis marketplace, these guys are all covered by their union health and welfare programs, and those trustees are grappling with it, trying to set up, you know, we have AGC of America, and it's a bipolar issue, quite frankly, because we don't want the requirements that are going to make us get the employees vaccinated, because it's going to drive workers away. And we have videos on our website, professionally produced videos, encouraging people to go get vaccinated. I know the contractors and the unions and the trade associations are doing everything we can to encourage people, but you can't force people. That's the problem. It's squishing a balloon, because if you squish it too hard, you're just going elsewhere. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you had suggested that it's difficult to find labor. There's wage pressures from other industries. There's supply chain shortage. All of this adds up to, and I think you spoke to this point in years past about moving to technology improvements in the construction industry. And interestingly enough, the largest modular builder, Katera, last year went out of business, which I'd like you to please explain to me, because in light of all these other pressures, it would seem like modular construction would be the wave of the future, and yet the largest modular builder went out of business. Could you please help me understand all that?
Well, what I've seen is maybe not on a national scale, but more on a local scale. I know Weiss Contracting, they started TJ Weiss that does the sheetrock. They started a separate division that they are doing small modular rooms as they go on. I know Murphy Company does sort of piping racks and things like that. I think what you're seeing is more of that type of prefabrication or modularization on that level. I don't know what Katera did, but if they were doing full rooms and like Lego stuff, it's not there yet. It's not there. I think they got out ahead of my take. The technology, they got out on the bleeding edge. They got too far out there that it's more of an incremental thing, I think, that's happening, that you're seeing modular pipe racks, or you're seeing bigger pieces of equipment, bigger components, but not entire buildings like that, or entire rooms. I think that's still way out ahead of its time. My take on it. That's how I would explain it. I think it's more of a area by area basis than some national outfit shipping rooms from Florida to Delaware or something like that. So there you go. Picture is worth what we just said in 1,000 words.
A follow-up question from online. What would make construction jobs more attractive to workers? I mean, there's the obvious one, right? A bigger check. Absolutely.
I honestly believe it's pay. Honestly believe it's pay. When you're looking at the response to the survey, let's face it, we're living in a somewhat of a bubble here in the St. Louis marketplace with the union rates. But a lot of these folks to these survey respondents are open shop contractors, and it's going to take pay increases. In talking with educators and talking with other folks, there's a sense that this image of construction as being something that's a secondary type of construction, a secondary type of career, is being dispersed somewhat, is getting better in the kids. We did, and you'll see a picture of it later, but we did a career fair in Sikeston, Missouri. We had over 1,000 kids show up. We had a career fair in Jefferson City. We had 800 kids show up. So this sort of idea that construction is something less of an attractive career is going away somewhat. But quite frankly, it's going to take more money. It's going to take a more open immigration policy. It's going to take daycare. It's going to take, I would say it's also going to take some changes about how we look at ex-offenders or folks with substance abuse issues. You've got a huge part of the population, young males, who make up the core of the construction workforce, who are either have a criminal record or have a substance abuse problem. That, I'll tell you what, we're working with I had a conference call earlier this morning with a social service agency that has offices all over the state trying to get folks with substance abuse problems re-entered into the workforce. We're doing OSHA 10 and OSHA 30. We've got a grant that we're doing OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 in some of the prisons now, so that people can at least have some safety training when they get out, or at least have some, you can't exactly take the prison yard out to a job site tour, you know. But those are the sort of different approaches we need to take to attracting a workforce. High school career days are nice, but let's face it, 80% of those kids are going to college. The parents are going to make them go to college, or whatever's going to happen. Great. They're in school. They got a family structure. We got to look at veterans groups. We've got a program running with a veterans organization in Southeast Missouri. And it never dawned on me before, but you get a young man or young woman from a broken home. They're in high school. The recruiter shows up when they're junior or senior in high school. Hey, join the military, see the world, you'll get paid, you got 4-8 years employment, great deal. Wonderful. They sign up for it, boom. They go do their thing. They come out 8 years later, what do they go back to? Same home they left 8 years ago. The same broken home, maybe worse because they left. These kids are trimming trees, they're delivering pizzas. So we're having to reach out to, we're looking at veterans, ex-offenders, folks with substance abuse problems, immigrants. We've got to get outside the pale, male, and stale sort of model here. Daycare, like I said, daycare is a big issue. We had some apprentices come in and ask, like, what folks who dropped out of the apprentice programs, why'd you drop out? Well, I had to take care of my kid. Maybe the wife's got a better job. Who knows? So it's a problem. I mean, here's what you're talking about for the next 12 months. Continue to be hard to hire, become harder to hire. That's what we're looking at for 2022. Here's a picture, a couple of those career days that we had, and that's great, but are we having those in North St. Louis? Are we having those in Sykeston and Jefferson City, where the teachers actually want the kids to go there? It's a struggle. It's a problem. We're having one. We're going to have one in St. Charles this spring and try to get folks engaged in that. This is, this might be a little bit of an eye chart also, but this is from AIA. Firms remain most concerned about project management issues, but staffing concerns are rising. Coping with the volatile construction market, finding candidates to fill key positions at architectural firm, 22%. So architects are feeling the same pinch. Now we move from people to projects. This is what you're looking at in 2022. You're seeing that bounce back, that a lot of projects were delayed are starting to go again. So you got projects that were postponed in 2021. Now they're being scheduled. Now they're being moved. You don't see a whole lot totally canceled. You're seeing more postponed but rescheduled. So you're seeing more of these projects didn't go away, but 46% are being rescheduled. Projects, what do you see happening in these individual markets going forward? Bridge and highway, down. Transportation down. Water, sewer up a little bit. Warehouse up. Healthcare up. So this gives you sort of where people see things going in 2022. higher, lower, about the same. You see what you're looking at there. What 2021 net was, and the first column really shows you what 2022 looks like. These are in rank order, going from top 3 being the IIJA money. All the infrastructure work we talked about earlier is going to be harder to attract people to private work. You look at the bottom, lodging, higher ed, K through 12, retail, private office, way down at the bottom there. So again, you're going to see a lot of competition with public dollars here of where you're seeing the market going in 2022. So this sort of gives you a picture. Warehouses, talked about that. Hospital work, Corps of Engineers. And then down at the bottom here, you're getting lodging, retail, more building work. As interest rates go up, again, this is public dollars. Municipal bonds, with the interest rates being down, every municipality in the world is issuing all the muni bonds they can get rid of because their money is so friggin' cheap for them right now that whether it's any sort of municipality is issuing all the bonds they can to do all the public works they can afford because they can get money cheap. So again, this is more public work sort of spending here. Look at the amount of muni bonds that were issued in 2021. So that's all spending that comes on board 2022, 2023. All this public work. This is the ABI. And you know this drill, above 50, below 50. You can see what happened to ABI. Terrible first quarter of the year. Bounced up. Now it's almost back to 50. So you're looking at, again, it's above 50. This is a leading indicator, leading 6 to 12 month indicator, but it's in the positive range. Inquiries, positive range. Design contracts, positive range. So all these things for ABI look good for 2022. Same as the chart we just saw before. This is all looking good for 22. Very few, you look at how many people think things are going to be worse in 22 than 21. Very small. Of course, other than retail, which I can sure get that, private office. Those people are in a rough shape. But everything else, very few people think things are going to get worse. Sectors, commercial, industrial, again, kind of tailing down. They're all right about at 50. They all kind of come back through here. Commercial, industrial, institutional, and residential all sort of come back to about the same point. So you're looking at not a big difference between the markets as far as the ABI goes. This is interesting. When's it going to return to normal level? It's already there. Volume of business already meets or exceeds. It's already there. It's already bounced back. The question basically is, what keeps you up at night? What's your biggest concern about 2022? 86% material costs. 79% availability of materials. Continuing pandemic on projects, workers, supply chain, and you get the worker shortages. Impact of vaccination requirements. 66% are worried about that. Direct labor costs. So you look at that top tier, it's pretty consistent. Pretty consistent what you're talking about as in terms of Availability of materials, supply chain, cost of materials. I mean, costs are just, you saw it. So people learn that lesson. Worker shortages. Again, this is national data. I don't know where this inadequate funding for public projects came from, because you just saw those charts previously of what's going on there. You can see that's way down at the bottom here, single digits. All those numbers that I talked about for 2022 so far were all national numbers. So these are regional. So when you look at the Midwest, we're in the strongest region. We're in the strongest region of any of the regions in the country. No big surprise, the Northeast is the worst. The West is second, like code words for New York and California. The South, pretty good. Midwest taking off. Guy this morning was saying, watch this merger of, what is it, Canadian National and Santa Fe, Kansas City, this big rail merger that's happening. We've all seen the pictures of the train tracks full of debris. LI shipping people are just burned out on the coast, and that big rail merger, or they anticipate we're going to see a big explosion of warehousing and cargo on the I-35 corridor from Minneapolis to Kansas City, to Texas. That all that freights, they're going to start throwing that freight on trains when they get all those train lines aggregated, and really change a lot of what happens in terms of moving materials, and a lot more of that will move to the Midwest. But you can see it's a pretty bright outlook as far as where we are right now. These are those same numbers we just saw, but this is just the Midwest. Not a whole lot of change. Same real tiers here. No big change. Things pretty much, I don't know if there's any real change in the sequence of any of these here when you look at the Midwest compared to the national numbers. Same thing with Midwest head count. Very strong for the Midwest. Having a hard time, a little higher here in the Midwest, having a harder time filling jobs. Only 10% aren't having problems. Here again, 80%, 85% going to be harder to hire in the Midwest. Nobody said it would be easier to hire. Nobody. That's Midwestern common sense there, I think. Same picture. Pay more. Bonuses. Increased benefits. Midwestern numbers. What impact did the projects have? Costs. Higher prices in our bids and contracts, 72%. Longer completion times. In fact, we're seeing more mergers, more M&A. Guarantee and Ashinger, KAI and Volk, Tarleton and Waterhouse, Castle and McCarthy. It doesn't take long to think of 5 or 6 huge, if you'd have told me I thought Ashinger and Guarantee were going to merge 6 months ago, I'd have told you you're crazy, but here they are. So I think it's, quite frankly, with all this uncertainty in the material market and having to pay people more and quite frankly, do more with less. I think the capitalization required to get into construction is brutal. You know, I got a letter on my desk this afternoon at 2 o'clock from some company in central Missouri that the city of Tipton, Missouri stiffed them for 800 grand on a change order, and so they're shutting the doors. So, you know, and I know that the pay practices in this industry are brutal, terrible, terrible. And the capitalization requirements to get into business, I think, are probably as bad or worse as they've ever been. So, trying to get a new business started requires such deep pockets that I think you're just seeing more of this M&A stuff happening. Nobody, 10% didn't have any problems. You asked about alternate suppliers, alternate materials, stockpiled stuff, or bought it earlier. So inflation drivers or alternates. Stockpile it or change it. Again, Midwest, similar to the other numbers we saw. And then what was the main reason for projects being, you know, you got 128% increase in steel, guess what? Ain't gonna happen. So a lot of things are happening there. Again, Midwest already back to normal for the most people. Biggest concerns, Midwest, same, no real change. So I'm going to kind of race through these because there's really not a whole lot different. You can see the Midwest numbers pretty much reflect the national numbers, and then the Missouri numbers, again, pretty much match this. Higher ed is a little bit higher here in the optimism scale. You see K through 12 and higher ed are a little higher here. They're not down at the bottom. They're sort of moved up into this middle tier a little bit. A lot of people hiring a lot of people in the state of Missouri. This is 26 responses are from companies in Missouri. Missouri numbers, pretty much the same. I'm going to blow through these, and I'll be glad to shoot you a copy of these or whatever you need. Just give me your business card. 12% no supply chain, alternate, stockpile, accelerate purchases. Same story. Why they stop it? Rising cost. Volume's the same. Biggest concerns in Missouri. Material costs kind of dropped down a little bit here, but the vaccination requirements kind of went up. Worker shortages. So what's 2022 look like for us? Metro, I'll kind of go, again, public spending. How many of you guys voted yes for the community college property tax increase last fall? They're doing, they got an $80 million program that they're starting at Flow Valley now this year. I got a call from them. Their person who manages all their construction's retiring, and they're looking for somebody. They've got to ramp up their construction department at the community college system with all the new money they're going to have. So there's going to be a lot of work at the community college, at the community colleges. The St. Louis Regional Freightway, that's part of Bi-State, part of Metro, but they're really looking at this whole railroad expansion and all the other things that are going on there. There's a lot of work that they're doing along this, along the I-70 corridor over into Illinois, the 270, with the 270 expansion that's going on up in the north side of St. Louis. They're looking at a lot of warehouse work and things going up along that area. Metro is going to spend $50 million on all the stations, security cameras, turnstiles. They've been working feverishly with local law enforcement agencies to try to get people back on the train and back on the buses. And the first way they can do that is make it safe. So they're going to be spending a boatload of money on the stations and on closed circuit TVs and all that sort of stuff, trying to do some work there. Metro is going to be doing all of that. MoDOT has a fuel tax increase that kicked in October. Those dollars are starting to churn, plus all the federal dollars we talked about. Those dollars are going to be rolling out over the next few years, but you see where the money is here. It's in the public agencies. All the money that Metro is spending on those stations are getting from private interests. Washington University, St. Louis University, Cardinals, all the people who are along the train route are pledging all the money to get all that done. The community college just had the tax increase. MoDOT just had the tax increase. So you're going to see a lot more public dollars in this region from those four. In addition to MSD is still continuing with their consent decree work. There's a big pre-job meeting either later this week or early next week on the next phase of their tunnel work that they're getting ready to do. So there's a lot of work going on there. So in summary, I'll go back to that Wall Street Journal. Inflation definitely going up somewhere. Materials is anybody's guess, but you're looking at probably somewhere 8 to 9% on materials, 8% on wages, bonuses, interest rates going up by 2 points, but there's a ton of work. There's a ton of work. All those projects that were moved back from 21 into 22, all these new public funds. Who's going to do it? You're going to have to pay more to get people to do it. You're going to have to pay a lot more, I think, to get people to do it. I've seen some of the labor contracts that are getting settled on the West Coast now, like Seattle, places like that. You're talking 5% increases a year for the next 3 or 4 years. You're just seeing sort of wild numbers out there on the West Coast for what they're having to do to get people going. Availability. I talked to one of our underground contractors yesterday, day before yesterday. Trenchless machines or excavators, 18 to 24 month lead time. 18 to 24 months if he needs to get a new boring machine or a backhoe. The lead time on equipment is crazy. And it's not just trucks, it's cranes, it's earth moving equipment. The lead time is crazy. And then certainly what's going on with the political landscape, what's going to go on with 2022 is an election year. We're going to see a lot of things. All this IIJA money sounds good, but it's going to take time to roll that out. That's going to have a long tail on it, but at the same time, Corps of Engineers has a lot of environmental work. There's going to be pressure to get that money flowing before the election. There's going to be a lot of pressure to get a lot of those things moving now so that those can be campaign issues going forward. So everything's going to cost more. People are going to cost more. Material is going to cost more. Money's going to cost more. But there's going to be more work to do. And it is going to start some sort of an upward tick here that we're looking at. So that's my predictions. I'll give my little plug. I do a podcast. I try to do it every week. It's more like 3 times a month. But you can subscribe to this on your phone. And I do about a 15-minute podcast once a week, once every other week. And it's free. You can send it to anybody in the world you want to. But I will have folks on there from MSD or the Highway Department or different contractors or GCs or suppliers or economists or politicians or anybody that has to do with the industry to try to keep this updated throughout the year and try to stay ahead a little bit because anything can happen, as you know. Nobody expected that we were going to see this sort of a big turnover in the workforce and this crazy inflation. So I made it through my 66 slides in less than 120 minutes. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
I'm going to jump in. I have a couple follow-ups from online.
All right.
One was really asking kind of an extension to the, how do we get more people in the construction trades? We hit on money immediately as the obvious answer. And maybe the next most obvious answer is, what are we doing to get women into the workforce? You mentioned daycare.
Some straightforward things and some subtle things. I know that one of the manufacturers now has taken the dramatic step of starting to actually make safety clothing that is fit for women, instead of women having to put on a man's safety harness.
That is dramatic.
Or a man's safety vest, or a man's hard hat. That there are safety clothes now being designed for women. There's this fledgling group, this Missouri Women in Trades, MOWIT. Actually, they're housed at our training school, and they get together and have sort of a support group for women who are in the trades. But I think it's just going to take a lot of quite frankly, daycare is the answer. Daycare is the answer. We can attract people all we want to, but if we can't retain them, I can talk to the apprentice coordinators, and 35% of every young person who enters an apprentice program drops out in the first 6 months. 35% drop out in the first 6 months because it isn't what they wanted, or it's too hot, or it's too cold, or the pay goes up and down because it gets cold like this and they got to sit home for 4 days. And so I don't know how we're going to solve the stability of revenue issue, but the daycare issue is a huge issue for women and men. But I think that is a huge issue that I don't know that anybody has figured out how to tackle. I talked about the programs we're doing in the prisons. When we said we wanted to do the OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 in the women's prisons, they looked at us like, well, all we have in there is like office skills and nursing. You're going to, so correctional institutions haven't come around to it. I would be open to any idea, but it just takes, I don't know that anybody is working to keep people out, but most people quit their job, not because of the pay or not because of the working conditions, but because they don't like their boss. That's the number one reason why people quit. And AGC of Washington started a program called Culture of Care. We have it on our website. We signed up for it. We promote it to our members. I was a carpenter apprentice. I remember my first day on the job, and the foreman said something to me, and I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "What did you say?" I said, "I didn't understand what you said." So I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Don't ever say that to me again. If you don't understand what I say, you say, 'What the fuck did you say?'" So we had a culture of I don't care. And that's a big shift to keep young people in, is that you have to respond to people where they are. And that is, you quit because your superintendent or your foreman talks to you like that. And you're like, I don't need this. I can go back somewhere else. So this whole culture of care effort is something to try to keep people once they get to the job site. We can attract women all day long to be on the job site, but if they're there for a day or two and they run up against that sort of behavior, it's not going to happen. So that culture of care is a thing that companies can sign on to. It's open to God in the world. AGC of America borrowed it from AGC of Washington, and now it's part of a national program. If you just Google culture of care, you'll see all the posters and all the other sort of stuff that goes on there to try to help people on the job site understand that once people are there, they're not going to stay forever. So you not only have to get people here, but you got to keep them, and that's an important issue.
Getting
Trade school. I'll tell you, the public trade schools are doing better. They're doing a lot better. I think, like I said, I think the educators are starting to realize that only 35% of young people graduate from college, and there's 65% that end up going somewhere else. And so schools like Missouri Technical School in Lynn, Missouri, or Rankin is expanding. Rankin's building another facility out in Columbia. They've got their facility here. We're working with a community college in Poplar Bluff, Three Rivers Technical College, Ozark Technical College in Springfield has several campuses, and those campuses are all growing. So I think what's happening is more education dollars are going to those campuses that are not four-year institutions. I think there's some better traction they're getting now. Enrollment's good. Enrollment's good for them.
there's good money in trades.
Yes, there is. There is good money. And I think people are finally waking up that the student debt and all this other sort of stuff that's been hitting the press is finally weighing on people to figure out, people like Mike Rowe and other folks have been beating this drum long enough that I think people are starting to listen. I really do. I think some of the stigma of working with your hands is going away. Yes, sir.
Yeah, real quick. So I work with CCDI as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And there seems to be three problems that we're tackling. One is the one that you mentioned already is, we've done a great job of basically, if you work with your hands for a living, you failed somehow, right? So
Right.
we're kind of getting some traction over that. Still a lot of work to do. But the two big things that are challenges to getting people in and keeping them, one is the I'm going to call it hazing that tends to happen.
Culture of care.
It's the culture of care. that has driven people out that we worked hard to get in.
Yep.
The other one is a thing that, you don't think about, thank God, middle class cars.
Yeah.
You have to have a car to be able to get to a job site.
Yeah.
And that has been one of the biggest impediments that we've had. Has the AGCers or been any investigations done, and how, I don't know, working with credit unions, banks to help maybe facilitate getting that car loan?
Yeah, I know that, and I'm not the best person to speak to this, but I know Anthony Lancia on our staff worked with some public funding and some like enterprise. So there was not just the loan companies or the funding, but like enterprise, that there could be that. And also, I think he was working with Uber and some of these ride hailing services to have a credit account for folks that they could, until time that they saved enough for a vehicle, they had a Uber account that they could utilize those dollars. So I will have to get back to you on that. Get me your card, but I know that we were trying something. It's a pilot program. The insurance and the liabilities and all the other issues with that are crazy. But yes, transportation's a perennial problem in this industry, no doubt about it. Yes, sir.
Well, our firm is designing a 750,000 square foot industrialized robotic surgical factory in Atlanta. They didn't come to St. Louis, but what gets buildings like that in this region? Because that's big jobs, long-term, pharmaceuticals. I mean, St. Louis is really a leader in that around the
Right.
world.
What gets us, first of all, we're a very tax-friendly state. With the Republican governor, Republican lieutenant governor, Republican House, Republican Senate, these people don't raise taxes for anything. So it's a very tax-friendly state from that perspective. We do have good utility costs. Missouri does have a lower college graduation rate, and a lot of the site locators look at educational attainment rates when they're trying to pick workforce. And this is not a political statement, but it's a factual statement. A lot of folks do not want to locate in a state that is not a right to work state. That's why we lose business to Georgia or to Kentucky or to Arkansas or Kansas. And it's their choice. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but that is like in their top 12 list of reasons why they choose to locate somewhere. Right to work used to be like third or fourth. It's down like eighth or ninth now. But you're looking at tax incentives. Unfortunately, also, I'll say, a lot of places like a Georgia or an Arkansas, their legislature will allocate money to economic development that they almost give people land. They almost give them the property. They give them utility. They damn near give them everything in the sun to get them to locate there. Because of the low tax environment in Missouri, the economic development people here in Missouri don't have those dollars to play with. And when they're competing with a Georgia or a Kentucky, where their legislature says, well, here's $3 billion. Go out and use it to attract businesses, put together parcels of property and give it to them, or give them a 10-year tax break or whatever. Other states have that, and because of our low tax environment, we don't have that. So there are some disincentives. We have to capitalize on location, the river, the highway system, and And workforce is up there. I mean, as the chair of the workforce board, that's a big issue in workforce availability. Big issue. These thoughts are my own, okay? You look at the pace of change in society, and certainly business is changing very fast. Think about a 7-lane highway. Business is changing at 70 miles an hour. What's in the next lane over as far as the pace of change? The American family. We talked about going back to the 50s. How many children in the city of St. Louis are growing up in a nuclear family with a mother and a father and one set of siblings? What impact does that have on education? What impact does that have on crime? What impact does that have on going to work? You've got single parent families, you've got divorced families, you've got mother A with father B and father B with mother A and mother A with mother B. And the impact that has on the economy and on crime and on all those sort of things, it's almost impossible to measure. But the implications of that, I don't think we've really figured out. I mean, I think we ran a charter school for 10 years in the city of St. Louis. AGC did. We ultimately ended up closing it. We had a young lady in school one day, and the police came in, sophomore in high school. Police came in and needed to pull her out of class because the adult who she was staying with had just been picked up on a parole violation, and she wasn't going to be home. So where was this kid going to go back home to that night? We had big brothers, big sisters in there, and this one young man identified himself as a throwaway kid. He said, well, why are you a throwaway kid? He said, well, I was born with this couple. Now, this man is gone and another man is in, and my mom had a couple more kids with him. And so now they've got their kids and I'm on the outside looking in. I don't have any place to go. So you've got those sort of situations that are, unfortunately, I think more the rule than the exception. We all know them. We all see them in our own acquaintances. And it's unfortunate, and I don't know that money is the solution to that. It's a really tough issue that goes a lot deeper than construction. You know, I talked about daycare as far as us keeping people in. When 50 years ago did you have to worry about daycare on a construction job, or have to worry about suicide prevention or drug abuse or all these sort of things, or culture of care? We're dealing with such a different population, and as far as the city of St. Louis goes, the question is, when's it going to touch bottom? In my mind, that's the question. I mean, you've got, you had Centene build those big new buildings in Clayton, and the first thing they talk about is moving out of Clayton because the crime's too high. We've got to get the city and county together. This Metro Link thing, they're spending $50 million on cameras. You've got a situation there where that train runs through Illinois, St. Louis City, and St. Louis County. And trying to get those 3 or 4 or 5 different law enforcement agencies, literally, it took 2 years to get them all to get radios that were all on the same frequency. Seriously? Come on. So there's the regionalism is a big piece of it. I mean, St. Louis City, the city itself is a problem, and I think we're a statewide association, and I see what's going on in Springfield, or I see what's going on in Columbia, I see what's going on. They're the same family problems. Wherever you go to Joplin, I talk about what's going on with our charter school. They have the same problems there with drugs. They have the same problems there with families falling apart. It's a tough one for our society, and I don't know that it's, unfortunately, maybe it's more concentrated in the city of St. Louis, but it's everywhere in the state. And we as an industry have to really, as a friend of mine say, we got to think outside the coffin. We got to look at a different workforce. We got to look at folks who are coming out of prison. We got to look at folks who are off drugs. We got to look at different places to find our people and be open to that. We're not going to get the cookie cutter folks that we expected 20 years ago, and be ready to adapt to that and have our foremen and superintendents that aren't running these people off. Have the frontline supervisors that are at a point to be able to adapt and deal with that. You're going to have to pay more. It's going to cost more. Maybe your productivity is going to go down, but you're going to have to live with it and figure out how to get the job done. I think that NGA project is starting to have a positive impact there. That's a bright light. One of my podcasts I did was with Paul McKee about that whole project and the whole vision there, and it is a great vision, and knock on wood, it all comes to fruition. I mean, the Corps has the money, and the Corps is making it happen, and hopefully that will continue to grow that part of the city. I mean, there's some success stories. There's the Foundry. There's the whole Cortex area. There's all those areas there that are getting stronger every day, which is a positive thing. I mean, BJC and WashU School of Medicine is still spending money like drunken sailors. I mean, they're still going on, and they're still, they didn't impose, WashU School of Medicine didn't impose a vaccine requirement for their contractors or their people because they needed to get the work done. Yes, sir.
I'm going to bring out the hook.
Great.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Well, yes, this is Joel Kirshen, president of the chapter. I wanted to thank Len. Always informative,
My pleasure.
always tons of information, and always takes a week and a half to digest and think about. But thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks everybody for coming tonight. Everybody be safe out there.